Hey, oh, but I did hear his takes. Like they were talking about somebody was talking about him with about like the GOAT conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I always love old heads. We be talking about like the GOAT conversation for certain things. Well, old heads that are kind of stuck in the time, because he was like, because they're like, he was like, what's the criteria for a GOAT? And that makes sense, right? He goes, so it's like he doesn't think Michael Jordan's the GOAT. He was like, he wasn't the best scorer ever. He wasn't the most dominant ever. He wasn't the most he wasn't the most winningest ever. But everybody he mentioned didn't play past 1980 or something like that. It was like he only mentioned Wilt Chamberlain, Oscar Robinson, and Bill Russell, and I'm just like, yeah, he taking one for the homies. You know what I mean? He like the only one alive. He doing. Oh, Bill Russell alive. My bad. But he taking the one for the. Oh, I think Oscar Robinson is too.
Yeah, like they're alive. They're just old.
All of the people you mentioned.
Oh man, I forgot Wilt. I forgot Wilt died because he probably had some STDs or something.
Shut up. Anyway.
Am I lying?
Shut up.
You heard the story. I went to the University of Kansas. I can say what I like. I went to the University of Kansas. I'm an alumni with this man. Granted, I don't know if he graduated or not. He probably got like an honorary or something like that. But
you know, college. You know,
they were usually there for like 4 years back then.
Oh, okay. Well, but this man was over here playing in the Negro Leagues. He a Harlem Globetrotter. I don't know what this man's life was. But you know, he died very early, and I'm like he died in the '90s, and Wilt Chamberlain is like, or not Wilt Chamberlain, but Russell's still alive. I'm just like, it's crazy.
That's why you ain't out there.
What you were saying though is a conversation I've actually had with my dad from time to time about how, like, you start looking like you can make an argument based on like certain accolades or like the record books or what have you, that like you can make that argument. Now whether or not it is the best argument to use is a separate thing, right? Because like he doesn't have the most rings, right? Bill Russell's got those, right? The most records is of course Wilt Chamberlain, who was a person that, like, you hear about him, it doesn't make sense that he actually existed, but like
it's really do like it's him like he the Flash.
Mm-hmm.
It said they really explain Wilt Chamberlain like he's the Flash or something, like he's superhuman.
I mean, he was. I mean, but like I also, it's like So I was listening to chess commentary recently, and they were talking about like the all-time greatest chess players, right? Mm-hmm. And they're like talking about like how do you know who is the best, right? Because chess, like all of the sports, there's eras, right? And they're like, how do you know who's the best? No, this person never played this person because this person was 20 years later, 40 years later, so on and so forth, 100 years later. And the chess expert was like, all you can really do is compare them to their counterparts, compare them to their peers, because they were the norm at that time. So if you compare their skill level to what was normal at that time, then you can kind of have an idea of just like the impact this person was able to do, because like, you know, they had the same kind of training equipment as that person next time. They had the same kind of coaching as that person at that same time. And you can take that from Michael Jordan towards the people in his era, Wilt Chamberlain for the person in his era, and it kind of puts them in the same category to be able to at least kind of compare them in that aspect. I know basketball is a little bit different, but I know sports in general is a little bit different. But I think taking that line of thinking and putting it towards basketball per se is a healthy way to think about it, though. Yeah. Because a lot of people try to say like, Wilt Chamberlain was playing against little small Jewish guys. So was everybody else. Like everybody else at the time was doing the exact same thing.
Side note, I also ran across something that the average height in the league wasn't that much smaller than it currently is back then.
Exactly, right.
There were also like 10 people in the league. So.
But at the end of the day, like but like those 10 people at that sport were the elite of that sport at that time.
Yeah.
So like, it's not just like Wilt Chamberlain was the only guy playing against these guys. The whole world who played basketball was playing against these same people, and they didn't make it to the levels of Wilt Chamberlain. And so like you have to kind of just compare it in that kind of way.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I kind of just got into chess commentary recently, and I was like, "Ooh, it's kind of helpful in a lot of different situations." So
But it's like also it's one of them things where you start talking about like who's the GOAT, right? And like the dudes who make it into the conversation,
I
like
never
even
did.
if there's that, I wasn't going there. But like especially in their eras, and like probably in most eras that you put them in all likelihood, they were monsters, right? They were like you look at their numbers, if you can like actually like dig up a game or whatever, they were far and away the coldest dudes of their era. Like there's like nobody in their era could stop them.
Yeah.
Like they could try, right? Like you could try to stop Jordan. You could try to stop Dr. J or Wilt or like any of these other dudes we talk about, Magic. But like good luck, right?
And it's really funny because like I don't know. It's just I know it's a basketball podcast, but it's hard to it's hard to make these comparisons with like a lot of other sports because a lot of other sports were much more segregated, like much more segregated for a much longer amount of time than basketball was. Um, so you can be like, so like for instance, like people like say Babe Ruth, whatever. It's like, yeah, Babe Ruth never played against a black people though. He never played against black people at all. But like in basketball, Bill Russell's playing against black people and white people, right? Bill Russell's playing against everybody, and he's still dominating everybody. Like the numbers that those two put up in comparison to everybody else are atrocious. Like it truly makes like they truly sound superhuman. Um, and Will Chamberlain, there's no 3-point lines, all that kind of stuff, and it's I find it mind-boggling. And then you could also find like the stats that like current players do. That's just as mind-boggling. Now, some of the stats are inflated, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that one series in the finals where LeBron was the leading scorer, the leading rebounder, the leading assist for both teams, that is a mind-boggling stat. Like, it truly is ridiculous. Now that was against a dynasty. So like, even nowadays, you have people that fall in line with these like these crazy stats that just truly don't make any sense for a person to be able to do. But Wilt stats are stupid. Like I don't even know how to like. So someone's like the all-time greatest player is Wilt Chamberlain. I'm never gonna say no because Wilt Chamberlain might have be the greatest athlete that's ever existed in like a modern era sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Once again, Calvin McGowan, hope you enjoyed yourself. If you are watching on YouTube, like, share, subscribe, leave something in the comments. You can also listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts. If you made it this far, once again, thank you. I hope you got a lot done of whatever it was you were working on while listening to this. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.